So when we think about video games, we think about video games being fun, maybe hilarious, perhaps. It might be challenging, it might be frustrating, or maybe it's, story-rich or cozy. There's many ways we can describe a video game. The thing I'm going to talk about today is queer indie games, and that's another term that I would like to use to talk about games that are made by the LGBTQIA+ community for the community. And really, today is a bit of a history trip, journey to the past, and we're also going to talk about games that are made more recently, the queer indie games as well. And hopefully, if you're not a gamer, I'm going to change your mind about what games could be by the end of the talk. The research that I'm going to talk about primarily focuses on a games exhibition that we held during Sydney World Pride this year. It's called Pride at Play, and we had a second run right here in Melbourne during the St Kilda Film Festival. And really, one of the things that we were really joyful about showing these games, and in fact, we showcased 23 queer games, both video games and tabletop games, is that people were really like, wow, these games exist, I didn't realize. And yes, for the people who are playing queer games, they already know what to look for. But for the most general public who walk into the gallery and they're like, what is this? And they're starting to read the catalog, they're playing games and they're discovering all these new things. And that is a joy that I want to share with you today. But before that, a bit of a history journey. So I collaborate with many queer researchers, and one of the most important things is the groundbreaking work by Adrienne Shaw. She's an associate professor in the US, and she founded this LGBTQ video game archive. So when she started this archive in 2015, she realized that, wait, hold on a second, like TV and film and music, there's plenty of documentation about, you can name gay movie stars and TV shows that have gay characters. Games you kind of know about, but you don't really see people talking about them besides a few, journal articles or news reports once in a while. And in fact, besides those, there was really no formal documentation. So unless you're like a dedicated gamer who's really documenting everything, you wouldn't have a way to look up this stuff. You just have to talk to people and know about it. So she started documenting, and over between 2015 and 2022, she collected 1,200 games all the way from 1970s, late 70s, all the way to modern day. And then she's like, so now we have an archive that we can show you that gay games did exist back in the day. And one of the games that I'm going to talk about is way back in 1989, called Caper in the Castro. You're the world-famous lesbian private detective, Tracker McDyke. You're searching for a kidnapped drag queen, Tessie the Femme. What you didn't count on was stumbling onto an even larger and more treacherous crime. This game was made with HyperCard 1.2 before my time, unfortunately. It was for the Apple II. And the designer made it as an AIDS donationware. So the idea was that back in the day, in the 80s, late 80s, we didn't have good scientific evidence about how to prevent or even let alone cure the AIDS pandemic. So there was a lot of friends suffering, Castro being a street in San Francisco. She wanted to have this game out there, and the idea is that if you get it, just donate to your local charity, and that's counting as buying my game. Now, if you were to play this game, you might have heard about the game from a poster, because back in the day, you can order in games. You might have heard about it on a forum, like the BBS text-based forum. And she estimated back in the day, she would have distributed about 150,000 copies of this game. Now, at the same time, besides Caper in the Castro, there was also a second copy that was being distributed called Murder on Main Street. So if you haven't heard about this game before, you might, do some pattern recognition. On the left-hand side on the screen, you can see, persons leaning against the pole. On the right-hand side, the same person leaning against the pole, except one game is called Caper in the Castro version 1.0. It's not just a game, it's a game. On the right-hand side, it's Murder on Main Street with, nothing mentioning a gay and lesbian-based adventure mystery game, not whatsoever. So what happened actually, CM Ralph, the designer, they wanted to sell the game as well, and they decided that after the game got really popular, they want to pitch to a publisher, or back in the day, the 80s, there's really no publisher. She wanted to sell it to a magazine who could distribute her games. So what would happen is she had to sanitize, make everything kind of pretty straightened, and so then she's able to sell this game. She's able to make a small profit out of it, and she was later documented with an interview that, so many people played this game that didn't realize it was a gay game, it's kind of cool. And actually what happened is a long time afterwards, this is around 2019, She didn't have a copy anymore. No one could play the game until she found that floppy disk that you saw earlier in like one of her filing cabinets. So you can actually today, you can play this game on the Internet Archive. So if you search for Capo in the Castro in your favorite browser on a computer, you can play an emulated version of this Apple II game made in HyperCard 1.2. It's pretty hard, I have to say. It's a point and click. You have to type words like examine door, touch blood, and sometimes it understands you, sometimes it touches the wrong thing. The overall gameplay plays about 2 hours, and there's lots of really awesome references to San Francisco back in the day. So I do encourage you to check it out as well. Now, about history lesson, a lot of the things with what I do, I'm a researcher at Monash University, is that I also collaborate to understand just how much games has been documented and what haven't we found out. So we went through the master list of 1,200 games, and we plotted every single game by, I guess, the LGBTQIA sort of a label. And you can see this massive gap behind me, right? That was at a time in 2020 when we did this work. So we were still knowing that there's a massive list, like around 400 from memory or so, maybe 500 now, in 2016, that we know this game is gay or lesbian or asexual or pan or whatever, but we have no documentation of it. We just know it exists. No one has gone through the Let's Plays, play through it to understand what's in there, properly documented, so the future people who want to look back to it can find out more about it, or even have a video recording of it. So that's one thing that stood out to me, and that's what started me on this journey of understanding, okay, so hold on, video games, like many digital things, they disappear over time. If you lose the disc, or in modern day, if Steam or other platform takes it down, like Netflix takes down your favorite TV show, it no longer exists, right? And it sucks. And this is the same for any video game, and especially for Korea games. So I wanted to understand just how many games that's not being documented and what can we do about it. I also looked at the stats as well, so I was also really interested in game developers. So I pulled the stats from various industry surveys from 2021 and 2022, and they reported in New Zealand that about a quarter of the people who are employed, like casually, contract, or full-time in the games industry, are women. In this case, it's women and also could be trans women as well. 2% of the participants are non-binary, and about 9% identify as LGBTQI+ was the label they used. In the UK, you have a 30% women and trans women, 3% non-binary, pretty similar to the New Zealand stats, and 24% reported as not heterosexual, which is interesting, a bit higher. In Australia, we have 23%, but only cisgender women, because they ask whether you're transgender, and if you are, it's then kind of lumped into this gender diverse over here, which is 11%. I'm really hoping in 2026, when the ABS launches the next census, we'll have a proper gender and sexuality census on the populace. But for now, we don't know in the games industry in Australia. But this stat is also really interesting, because if you look at the global stat, and this is done by the Independent Game Developer Association, pretty similar, 30% women, 5% transgender, 8% gender diverse, and also 32% similar to the UK. That's anything but heterosexual, or actually I missed, it's 32% not heterosexual nor cisgender. So I'm like, holy shit, that's a pretty high number. Like, I don't know, if you were to ask, how many people do you think is gay in your neighborhood? 32% is not a number you would use, right? So the games industry is like super fucking gay. What's also really interesting, I also look at games that's being published. So in this case, if we're talking about independent indie games, I also research on itch.io, which is a platform anyone can distribute and sell the games if you want, or publish it for free. There's, at the moment, I just checked this 2 days ago, so this is like up to date. 837,000 games that's available. It's a massive number on itch.io. So that's all the games that I have available you can check out right now. And 4,400 games that's tagged as LGBT or LGBTQIA or related labels in that area. And this is about 0.5% of the overall games that's available on itch.io. Now, this stat is exactly the same in terms of proportion. It always hovers between 0.44 and 0.52 or so. Throughout the last 3 years, I've been looking at this. And the stat is also the same in mainstream games. On Steam, if you count the number of LGBTQ games, and there's labels and different ways to count this, you'll get about 0.5%. So This also was really interesting to me because, okay, so if a third, like 32% of the people who are employed in the games industry are not heterosexual or cisgender, how come there's only 0.5% of games that's marketed as queer? Is it because there's a perception that people aren't gonna buy games that are queer? Well, no, actually, there's many online games bundles that's going on all the time. So for example, on itch.io, there's a queer games bundle 2023 that just ended earlier this year. They raised, in this case, 161,000 USD plus more donations from a different site as well. And on the tabletop game scene, it's even better. Kickstarter is like known for funding tabletop games like every 2 seconds or something. And in this case, Artisans of Splendid Vale, which is a BIPOC-focused tabletop game that's magical and queer, you go on an adventure. They raised over $200,000 when they only asked for 10, right? So clearly there is a market, and it's just surprising to me that we don't have enough queer games out there, clearly. So the reason why we wanted to curate the games exhibition, Pride at Play, was to kind of prove that there's already a market, people are going to come to this. So why don't we celebrate the good games that are out there and just show it to the world? So for me, as a curator, this is my way of doing queer resistance. This is my way of saying that we're here and we exist, and this is something that you should really care about. So Pride at Play, we had many different setups depending on where we were at, but we always have a set of interview excerpts. So we interviewed 20 game developers that submitted their games and were accepted into the curation. We also put them right next to the screenshots. So you can get a sense of what a game might be about by reading what they have said, and then you might choose to then go play their games, which is gonna be right next door or right behind you. So we wanted to make sure that we create a window into a connection, like not quite a bridge, like a window, you can look at it from here, to understand where the developers are coming from. And today I want to tell you about 3 games that we had in the exhibition, and hopefully you'll be interested to check out more and even just discovering, these games do exist. And if you don't play games, well, like I said, I'm going to change your mind about what games are. No pressure, right? So we have many games that came from tabletops. People can leave a message. There's also computer games and so on. We can even have a Game Boy game as well, like this. It comes in all types. The first game that I want to talk to you about is called Tombs, or Toot on My Balls Skeleton. It's a game for 2 or more players. You play as ancient skeletons, perhaps 1,000 years old. And you forgot how to have sex, but you were really horny. So you're like, okay, what do I have? Do I have a human skeleton? Am I a bat? Am I a vampire? Like, what do I even look like? In fact, if it's been 1,000 years, what part of my body still exists? And so the game invites you to think about what it would be like for this really awkward, strange creature, and try to work out how to have sex. Now, it does have safety tools in the games as well, so if you're playing with strangers, there are ways to guide you, and you're not gonna do things you're not comfortable with. But the game also invites you to think about, if I don't have a part of my body anymore, or if my body is weird, how do I have to have sex? I have to be creative, right? And queer folks like us, we have been creative all our lives in order to have sex. So this is something that is really dear in my heart. And also it kind of talks about disability as well, thinking about how would you have this kind of stuff if you can't move your arms or something like that. So this is a game really worth checking out, and it's definitely gonna be amazing with your friends and with beer. The second game I'm gonna talk to you about is not a tabletop game, but in this case, it's a visual novel. So you're playing through, it's called interactive fiction. So you're playing through and reading the game as you go along. It's called So About Last Night by Elisa Black. In this case, you play as a girl, probably just around high school, university age. And you went to a rave one night, you met this girl, she's really interesting. Something happened, you were about to kiss her, and then there was a blur. And you wake up and you realize something has changed within you. There's a strange feeling of blood. In fact, you feel like you want to drink human blood. What's going on? So you started freaking out. Now, this game is set in 1996. This is before smartphones and mobile internet. So the only way to find out what happened is to find that girl. And you have to kind of ask around. You drive around the town to see, has anyone seen her? Like, where did she even come from? It's a bit of a, I would say, romance, comedy, horror. It's got a bit of everything. And while the game plot, the story is linear, it does let you choose many meaningful choices, and you can change how the game plays out as you go along. And it is really cute as well. So that's another game you can check out and play through in about an hour by yourself, if that's what you're into. Vampire fan fictions, I know I am. I just finished reading a gay, trashy werewolf fiction as well, so totally in my alley. Now, the third game is also a tabletop game. It's a single-player game, but you can play with friends as well. It's called Logan, an autobiographical tabletop game. And this game is about the game designer. In fact, you're playing through his life when he was born at age 0, all the way to when he was 23, at the age when he was making this game. And then the idea is that you will always go through transition. So the gender transition as a female to male is compulsory, but anything else in the game, it's up to you. You can have a different beer style, you can dress differently, and depending on what kind of songs you choose, the road trips that you go to, you have a different version of Logan that you could play. And it's a game to invite you to think about what it's like for someone to go through gender transition, and it has all these different prompts that invite you to think and write things down. It is really heartwarming, and at the end of the game, if you play it properly, you do get like an A4 sheet of a journal that you can read through to see Logan's life from 0 to 23. So, and that's something you can keep with you forever. So it is really worth checking out as well. All these three games, they're not like first-person shooters, they're not platformers. They don't really require you to really know how to play a game. They have excellent, clear explanation of how to play the game, and you don't have to be good at it, because I think, to me, to play a queer game, it's not about being good, it's not about winning, but it's about going through and just finding out what stories out there that you can discover. And that is something that I think queer games do really well. It's typically a story-rich experience that has to do with gender and sexuality. So that's another thing that you can think about, is that games are not all about competition. Like, if you're not good at games, you can still play queer games. They're really quite cool. Now, we have a lot more games in the exhibition, and even though the physical exhibition has finished, you can check out our online catalog, which is on that QR code over there at prideatplay.org. And if you're super, super, super interested, I've brought a physical catalog with me from the exhibition. I will leave it somewhere here. You can just come and have a look at it. It will be here all night until we wrap in Nite. And in this book, we have all the interviews with 20 game developers, and you can come up to ask me about, what other games would you recommend, that kind of a thing. I always have a recommendation. So that's here for you. But that is my time. Thank you so much. This light is really bright. Wow.
I am so gay and so into games, and I can't wait to play all the things. You, I think, nearly made me shoot soda water out my nose with tombs. That was phenomenal. And the little animation with the horn, so good. Anyways, all right, we will do some questions for Xavier. I can't see.
There's one hand over there.
Yes, down here. So out of queer games specifically, so out of queer games, what are the most popular genres that are being played by queer gamers, or that are being made, or both? By anyone? Okay, cool.
So I can only approximate based on the number of games on the market. I don't have access to the itch.io backend to know how many people have installed or bought or downloaded them. But when you look at itch.io as a whole, about 60%, this is a number I'm just kind of remembering. We have a paper in 2021, I can share that with you later if you like, is visual novels or interactive fictions. So they're typically games that you're just gonna click and go through a dialogue with branching dialogue and narrative choices. And then from that point on, the genres starts to kind of drop, and there's a lot of everything. There's racing, there's puzzle, there's adventure, there's action, there's all kinds, but you find visual novels and interactive fictions dominate.
Gays love a choose your own adventure story. Fucking preach. All right, more questions.
Yeah.
So what classifies or qualifies, I should say, as a queer game when you're doing your research?
So for that 2021 paper I just talked about, we were looking at the tags only, and these tags are, and we know this, they're made by the developers themselves. So they chose the tag to display, to label their games. So then we were able to collect about 23 or 24 tags that's LGBTQ or related things, even like BL, even things like gay, yaoi, it's all there. And that's how we were able to compile the list to then go deeper. But for me, personally, I define queer games as games made by and for queer people. And also they're games that typically contain a story-rich experience that has a main character or plot that has to do with gender or sexuality. So you can obviously expand that definition further and say, oh, by the way, this role-playing game in 2002 it came out. It has a queer character. You might meet them. You might not. You might choose to go with them or not. And to me, okay, so if you have a character like that, and as a player, you didn't know they existed, you didn't even meet them, is that really a queer game? So I was also not really as interested since Adrian Shaw has done the work and as a few other scholars in terms of the games from before. Now I'm focused square on games that are very queer.
Main character energy, queerness only.
For sure.
All right. Any other questions? We've got some time for a couple more. Yes. Do you have games that are tombs for kids or not kids? Are there games that queer kids can play that are a bit more wholesome in a different way?
Yeah, for sure. So the game that behind me is called Kinda World, if I can point to over there. It's a game on Android and iOS. You can download it for free. It's actually a mental health well-being game, and the game encourages you to every day for 5 minutes, you're looking after houseplants and writing a reflective journal. But in the game, there's a super cute Samoyed dog. They're gonna come and greet you. Sometimes they'll kind of, write a letter to you as well. And eventually they will come out to you as a non-binary. It's really cute. So you can actually figure out, so how am I supposed to call you? And they're like, oh no, I think they, them is fine. Just call me whatever you like. It's pretty cute. And so what we have heard about this game is that for people who may have a very strict parents and they want to have a game that they know it's kind of in their own little world, you can choose to decorate the room however you like. And this game, doesn't look overtly queer, but there's a lot of elements in the game that allow you to tap into that. So that's a game that I would definitely recommend for kids even, will be fine.
So wholesome for the baby queers. Also, surely we have teachers here that could get this written into the curriculum. I don't know, make it compulsory that all students must download and play this. And their parents. All right, one more question. So we have stats to tell us how many devs are queer. Do we have stats around players?
So that 2026 Australian census, please. The UK has one, right? The UK did a census in 2021. They know in the whole country. I forgot the stats exactly, but in Brighton, the city, and Greater Brighton, I guess, it's like 10, 11% people are queer in Brighton, and that's not going to be a surprise to you if you've ever been to the UK. But overall, countrywide, it's like 1, 2, 3%. That's kind of the stats that you typically know, and then that's true for the UK. They did a population census, and I believe 98% of the population filled it out, right? Now, if we have that stat in Australia, that will give you a better idea about, Melbourne CBD, Greater Melbourne, other cities, what's proportion that's out there. But what we do know from the IGEA, the Interactive Games and Entertainment Association, they also surveyed the public to say who plays games, what age, and stuff like that. And they found that about 91% of the Aussies play games, whether it's just on your phone, playing a little bit every day, or you're all the way down to playing with friends really regularly as well. It's a pretty high number. So yeah, ABS 2026, come on.
ABS to tell us that Brighton and Melbourne, not very gay at all. Brighton in the UK, it's pretty gay. Okay, we can't end on a Nerd Night boss question, so we'll take one more question. That is such a, I have so many ideas. How do you take Call of Duty and make it queer? You make a lot of straight gamer teens angry. But that's part of the fun, surely, right, Xavier?
No, it's all good. So I'm not the only person by myself doing this kind of research. So Elena Cole, who's a producer, but now I believe she's the head of equity, inclusivity, something like that. It's like a long title at Sledgehammer Games, which makes Call of Duty, and she just launched Call of Duty 3 or whatever the number is, and that's the 4th game she's made now there. She would know, right? I don't know. She makes the games. So what I do know is they have an internal tool that tracks a lot of the stats that they're doing to try to make the game a little bit more fair and I guess more representative. But because I haven't looked into it, I can't speak to it. But Elena Cole, I'll just go and message her on LinkedIn and say, hey, Xavier mentioned you.
Send a million letters to this lady.
She's really cool. She's super cool. Yeah, no problems.
Well, thank you, Xavier. I have a lot of letters to write to this Elena lady. Thank you very much. What a great talk.
Thank you.